everyone, I'm Matteo Collina, Platformatic co-founder and CTO, and today I'm going to talk about something that makes me a little bit nervous: generating types and trees. Why? Well, let's dig into it. So, the first question for all of you is how many ropes do you need to climb a tree? This is a fundamental question, and we are going to try to answer that question in this talk. So let's go. First thing, a couple of things about me. Hey, I am Matteo Collina, part of the Node.js Technical Steering Committee, also board member of the Open Source OpenJS Foundation. I created a bunch of libraries, help maintaining Node. Probably you're using some of my software, given it's being downloaded 17 billion times last year. So yeah, maybe. So some of my decision impact a few people. So hopefully I don't break too many of you during this talk or otherwise. So anyway, let's go and let's jump. So I wrote a lot of modules. I maintain a lot of modules on NPM, a lot of downloads, whatever that matter. By the way, if you ever use one of those, if you want to send me a GitHub sponsors, everything is appreciated. I have a little bit of a small confession to make. What? Well, before 2022, I almost never used TypeScript. And here I'm speaking at TypeScript Congress. Ouch. So what is that? It's really, fascinating. I completely skimmed and avoid this technology for as long as I could. What happened in 2022? Well, I started a new company, and it was a developer experience focused company. So yeah, I kind of had to dig into TypeScript. In fact, it's all based on something I previously done, which is Fastify, which is a project on the inside the OpenJS Foundation too, and it's all about building APIs. Okay, I'm a backend engineer by trade, and what I want to help people and how to help people with my tool is to build and use APIs better and make it faster and make them easier to develop, maintain, scale, whatever you name it. So yeah, typically the typical flow of when you're one of your team members or somebody else starting writing your APIs is you have an API on one end, and you have typically a backend engineer writing them. Writing some complex SQL or some complex MongoDB queries, whatever you want to like. Then they write some documentation from that API, and then your client, your engineer, front-end engineer, code their client. So, okay, how does it make to generating the types? Yes, let me introduce the problem first. So, this is more or less what Platformatic wants to simplify and improve how we create backend software. Okay. Typically, what we want to do is we want to allow you to move very quickly from A to B using as much as Rails as possible, guardrails for all of you to move very fast, and then it's you can get your all-terrain SUV to go where exactly you want to go. So we want to help developers get rid of all the undifferentiated heavy lifting of building Node.js apps. So as part of that, we at some point we started focusing, after we work a lot on APIs and improve how APIs are being written. What we found out from talking to a lot of people was that but having a client for those API was actually fundamental for this experience, providing a good experience and streamline the development. So what happened was that most people really like this flow much better. So instead of having to code a client and prepare documentation for the API, I just want to hit a button and generate a client. In fact, this has been so popular for ages, and kind of we got it lost a little bit along the way, because I remember generating clients for my APIs when I was doing Wisdol and SOAP a long time ago. So well, probably not a great comparison, but it is. So anyway, this has been extremely popular recently. So in fact, this has been popularized a lot by a few new libraries. One is TRPC, which it's fantastic, provide a fantastic developer experience. It allows you to expose creates an RPC call from the server from the client to the server in a completely type safe way. It's great. Okay. It has only one significant drawback, which is introduced tight coupling between the code of your front end with the code of your back end. It also uses a proprietary protocol to communicate. So yeah, it's very tight. It's a very tight coupling between client and server. There is another library called TS-REST, which is also great, fantastic library, but it has another small problem, which is you need to specify the contract between your client and your server as its own TypeScript definition. Again, in order to consume the library, you need to have a source code dependency on the server. So again, for me, it introduce tight coupling between those two. Okay. In fact, the problem here it's the concept of the what happens in most teams that I have worked and developed with and so on. It's that you have basically some APIs that is developed by more or less a team, and there is another group of people that creates and consumes those APIs. And those groups typically are more or less separated in most companies and in most organizations. So integrating everything together creates a tight coupling between everything that makes it very hard to break down and scale and keep evolving things. And by the way, nothing to be taken by those libraries, which are fantastic. I'm just talking about what I am not. Some of the reason why I think we need a better client experience for APIs. So where are we left? Well, something that we want to provide some fantastic developer experience, but without any tight coupling. So without any code being shared, essentially, between the server and the client. Okay, so that you can essentially use and consume other APIs and so on. And so that one can use TypeScript 4.9 and the other one can use TypeScript 6 in the future. Okay, and they can evolve and have different versions, different things. Everything is fun and perfect. So how can we generate this developer experience? I started this journey, one of my journey in TypeScript world, with this question. And as part of this journey was a little bit of a survey that shows that more or less 80% of developers prefer REST to GraphQL, which sounds very much unintuitive to me, but that's what it is. Okay. And if you have better data than this, please let me know, because this is actually something that I'm very curious about. So how can we generate? So my journey started where how can we automatically generate a client for our REST APIs? And the generated code should be ideally minimal and simple. So how can we get that? Okay. Well, something very fantastic was that OpenAPI is a standard. Okay. And, I built this framework called Fastify, which is a really good framework. It's taking over more or less a lot of, it's getting out of attention these days on how to build APIs in Node.js. And you can easily get an OpenAPI or Swagger, as it was previously called, generated very, very quickly on top of your routes. So we can get the documentation, but also the spec definition for OpenAPI. So we have we can get these mostly for free using Fastify or using Platformatic. So the client, in fact, had a few requirements for me. And one was, well, I have my routes defining using OpenAPI, and I want to consume them very easily on the front end. I don't want any data validation happening at runtime, or maybe it should be disabled, okay, whatever, because I don't want to waste any time on the client, okay? I want my code to be as snappy as possible. And but I also want to be fully typed to catch developer mistakes on the editor. And I want to use fetch, so I have no dependency whatsoever at runtime. So I can just get my generated file, and that's it. So my first try to generate this code was to use. So I started using this code generation. How can I get the code that generated my code generated? And I read a good article on DevTo. I started doing a lot of things. And I wanted to let's do an experiment. Let's just generate this very, very simple function. And this code on the right, it's what it takes to generate that function, okay? Now, look at the code. It's actually complex, okay? You can read what it's doing, okay? I create an identifier. I create the function. It does all the things, okay? But it's very, very hard to if there is a problem there, it's actually very, very hard to debug. It also takes a lot of code to generate very few lines. So, I was not necessarily ouch. How can I thought I could generate TypeScript easily, but how can I get it? Like, it seems this is a massive tree that I have to climb, and I couldn't get it done in my timeline. So I was like, maybe not. It was, I didn't want to climb any trees, but this seems a massive tree to climb. So, how can I get it done? So I did another try. Okay, I did some scavenging and I did a second try. And this library that I found is called Code Block Writer, which is absolutely something that it's really, really nice. And I think you should be taking a look at Code Block Writer if you are if you're trying to generate code dynamically. Why? Because it has a very very good property here. Because if you look at the code on the right, it's essentially it's homomorphic in the sense that the code in how we write the function is very, very similar to the generated code that we wanted to have. Because it is a homomorphism between those two things, we can actually, debug, like find bugs and fix them very, very easily because, this is the tree lines that generates the tree line. It's the same code, right? I can see these tree lines and those lines. So it's actually very useful, very easy to write because it has this very, very nice block property that allows us to create insert braces automatically. Hey, nice. And it also generates, manage the indentation for us automatically. I really like this library. Okay. It has only one big drawback. The generated code is not guaranteed to be valid. Okay. It's also way smaller, so that if I wanted to bring down the TypeScript compiler, like 50 something, whatever megabytes, they're reducing it on so maybe it's now 30. I don't know. Anyway, it's a massive dependency, the TypeScript compiler. But this one is actually very tiny too. So, it's actually very nice and cool. So it seems like the lazy option here. And I am a lazy developer, so I started going, let's do that. Let's do lazy. Okay. And let's take a look at the OpenAPI spec and how it generates the code. Okay, what code we want to generate. So look, the OpenAPI spec, it has a path, a paths property, and it says that there is a /movies, for example, and each path has an operation ID. And this operation ID we can use to generate our function names. So when somebody wants to call await get movies, for example, we can call the /movies endpoint automatically. Okay. Also, it defines its parameter and responses. Yeah, it's great. Okay. And then we can do the exact same thing for all the other operations that are defined in my OpenAPI specification. In fact, we can even, check and define the types and generate the types for each one of our parameter and responses. If you look at it, it's actually pretty great. Okay. And we have all the parameters defined, And then we have all our responses defined. So we can generate interfaces for both of them and use them as part of our API. So we have create movie, and there is a create movie request that returns a response. Seems good. So I think this is, for me. Oh, one of the interesting point here is that you see in here we have split. Oops, sorry. We have split here the types of our APIs with the actual interfaces. So in this way, things can be manipulated better, we think. So anyway, some of the good, there's a few good ideas here, but the generated code is actually very, very simple. Like it's you can actually map with one-to-one to what you need. And I think it was, we could generate this client very quickly. So let's do a little bit of a quick demo, and so that we can see how easy it is to do stuff. So let's create a little bit of a small API. So we can create Platformatic. And here we go. We want DB. Here we use SQLite, but we could use everything. Oops, sorry. And yes. And no for now, because I don't want to do npm install. So I am creating very quickly an API automatically. And no, right now I don't need anything. I don't need. So when I start this up, I could here do Platformatic start. And if we open this up, okay, and we go back in here. Oh, sorry. Here we go. I can see exactly what's happening. So this is what get loaded, and I can open my OpenAPI documentation, and I see that I have movies with all my parameters, which we can automatically get for querying everything. So how do we generate the client? Okay. Oops, sorry, I am. Okay. So how do we generate the client? So let's go back, cd client. Okay, and here I prepared a very simple thing with a package JSON with TS node and TypeScript, so we cannot waste time with npm install. So now I can do PLT, so clear, and PLT front end, and I need to put in the URL of my app, and then I want to generate it in TypeScript, and it has generated us two files, API types.b.ts and API.ts. And we have two of them, okay? And let's take a look. So this client is actually very simple to use. And we have here our fetch. Oh, I need at yes config.json here, and I need the compiler options, okay, and I need the target, and okay, otherwise things will be awkward. Here we go, and comment expected. Okay, great. So this will be awkward. Okay, so anyway, what we have here, we have our fetch. So it's all fetch based and all standard based. So we have actually no dependencies whatsoever. And then in API types, as I showed, we have our get movie request here that get things through. So yeah, this seems pretty good. So let's try and use this and how the experience would look like. So if I open test, yes, I could import from API, okay, and now I could get set base URL and for example, create movie and get movies. Now I could do set base URL 3042. Okay, and then we want to create here does not, you see here does not exist here. okay, and we does not exist in the create movie request. So in fact, if we look at the types here, if we go in create movie, sorry, okay, create movie request, you see that it has an ID, optional ID, and then server type, required title. So here it's fine. So then we have created our movie, and we don't need anything here. So okay, and then we could just get movies here and do console log. And and I need to specify some parameters, but in this case are empty. So, and we have generated, we are getting these movies, okay? And let's try this. Okay, so if I do ts node test, now it's running. Cool. Okay, I'm running twice. Why it's running twice? Because these two are, you know, it's let's be nice. Let's be nice. So function run. Here we go. And I think they were executed in parallel, right? So we can do await, and here we put Star Wars, and here we do press await, yes, and then run. Now we can run this again, and here we go. You see we have the two that we had before, and now we have Star Wars. We can also verify it very quickly if everything goes correctly. And it's here we could try this out and see if this works correctly. As you can see, we got the exact same result. And this is the code that will be executed and generated. So now this is, I think this is pretty nice. It's a pretty good way to generate a client. As you said, here I'm just going, let me do a tree. Here we have no dependencies whatsoever apart from TS node and stuff. Like it's, if you can, here we have only TS node and TypeScript. So there is no other dependencies in those files. It's super small and all API based. And this, so the benefit of this is, the benefits of this approach of using OpenAPI is that it works with any OpenAPI compatible with any OpenAPI system. So you can get a very good developer experience just by generating some code for those OpenAPI definitions that are already available for a lot of APIs. So you don't need to generate some new ones or create new libraries or anything to consume them. So I don't know. I think this is was an approach that was very, very interesting to try and verify if everything would have helped us in somehow. So the question for you is: did we climb the tree? So hey, did we climb the tree? I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Try our open source tool at docs.platformatic.dev. And I don't know. Thank you very much, and thank everybody for having me at TS Congress. Thank you. Bye.